You're listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
It is Monday, Easter Monday. He is risen.
He is risen indeed. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. It is Mental Health Monday, and looking forward to chatting this morning with Deaconess Heidi. Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for supporting the Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu.
Live uncommon.
Well, good morning, Deaconess Heidi Goehmann. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm good. I had a nice, restful Easter. That's how I would describe it.
Like many of us, Sarah, how about you? Was it restful? You had a lot of music going on.
Yeah. Yesterday I took a nap yesterday, so that counts as rest. Leading up to yesterday was really busy, though, because my husband and I were playing the congregation for our live streamed church services. So we were there.
Cantors.
We were at church for everything, which was nice in a way, also tiring. And I think that might play into what we're talking about today, too.
The two people hiding in the balcony, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, with the organist, but yeah.
Well, glad everyone is here and healthy, and looking forward to digging into our topic today. Heidi, you said you had a restful Easter. Anything else about this past week that you want to share as we get ready to dig into? Is it JOMO? Is that the right word that we're getting ready to dig into?
The acronym. Today? I know, right? Acronyms always throw us off, which is funny because I feel like as the LCMS, like we don't know how to live outside of acronym life, but we have to remember it's good to use the full phrase. So we're going to talk about the fear of missing out today, as well as the joy of missing out, which in technology lingo, and I think it came about because of, texting and like shortened letter phrases and stuff. People say FOMO, FOMO, and they say JOMO, JOMO. And so, yeah, I think that we all probably had a little bit of FOMO this week, if I'm honest, because Holy Week in church life is a big deal. It's usually the time when we have a lot going on. And so even while we can understand that we're under quarantine and we're not supposed to be going places and things like that, we are always wondering right now, I think, what everyone else is doing and whether they're doing better things than we are doing. Do you guys think that's true? Do you think you'd concur?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, with social media, I'm probably spending more time on social media now because I can. And scrolling through feeds and seeing everybody else's families and all the fun stuff they're doing. And I'm like, well, we're here just like sitting on our couch doing probably nothing. But yeah, I mean, with Holy Week last week too, even though my husband and I were actually physically in church, we were still missing out too, because there was no congregation. Like the service would end and then it was dead silent. And it was especially Easter Vigil Saturday night. It was weird to not have people there to celebrate Easter with on Saturday night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's two things going on too, and recognizing both of them is really helpful. So we've talked a little bit about the losses that people experience in this quarantine. And so that's one thing that's going on, just the basic missing out. Like we are actually missing out on things, and that's hard. And Julianna from Youth Ministry wrote an article about ambiguous losses a couple weeks ago that was really helpful. And so I think we can put a link in the show notes for people to find that article, just to recognize those losses that don't seem real obvious, but that many of us are experiencing right now, and having a space to remember them and say that that is impacting our lives. That's a powerful thing. And so that's one thing happening, actual missing out. Most of us did not go to Easter Sunday service. outside of our homes, or at least enter the sanctuary, if you will. Most of us are missing some time in relationships instead of over a video at the very least. And so then there's this other thing going on that's called the fear of missing out, where we are literally making things up in our head that other people are doing that's better than what we're currently doing because we're stuck in our homes and on social media. We see people even having a cool dinner and using their china and things like that. And we're like, hey, I didn't actually get out of my pajamas today. And so that messes with our brain a little bit. And so can you guys see the distinction between those two things?
Yeah.
Between FOMO and JOMO?
No, between just missing out, like the concept of just missing out and having a loss, and then the fear of missing out, the difference between those two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe not yet, huh?
Yeah. And I have to say, I'm probably the odd man out here. I'm okay with being at home. I'm okay. I mean, for me, probably the biggest thing certainly has been missing the Lord's Supper and missing out on Maundy Thursday service with the congregation. Our circumstances just don't allow us to have that together right now. But I I've had time here with my family. We've heard the word. We've been in touch with our pastor, and so we've been able to hear the word and receive the gifts, and in that way. And we did have Easter meal here at home, and we've had plenty of things to do here at home. I've not found myself bored yet by any means. So I'm kind of the odd man out, but I imagine at some point it's going to hit me that I'm missing something, or I feel like I'm missing something. I want to dig into ambiguous loss a little more if we can, because you brought up that point that DCE Julianna Shults shared in youth ministry, and I think that's maybe something that maybe I sometimes experience, especially I felt over the last few weeks of, I feel like I've lost something, but I don't really know what it is. It's very ambiguous. Like, no one close to me, I've not truly lost anyone close to me. We talk to my parents and my in-laws, and we talk to relatives and friends on the phone or on video chat, things like that. But there are times when I do feel like maybe I'm sad about something, but don't know exactly, I feel like I've lost something. Yeah.
I hear from a lot. Sure. I hear from a lot of people right now that they just find themselves being emotional. And I would say that's the most common thing I hear from people, men, women, children, all experiencing the fact that just emotion will jump up on them and surprise them at any given moment. People who are even just not normally real emotive people, that's their kind of go-to way of communicating. And so I hear from parents in particular, they feel like they need to hide that a little bit because they're trying to stay strong for their kids, but they have even no idea what's going on inside them, and it just pops up. And so that, I think, is the intersection of our lives with ambiguous loss at this time. So things have changed, and with change and transition comes loss. And change is good so often. It's such a great growth-oriented place to be. God really stretches us and brings new things into our life with change. But for us as human beings, that also includes some hard stuff. And so even the act of dropping my kids off at school, that's an ambiguous loss. I miss that. I miss, joyfully saying goodbye to them and watching them trot off with their friends and say hello to their teachers and, waving to our principal who's drinking his coffee outside. It seems like such a silly thing to miss from my day. And so often ambiguous losses stand in that place that seems silly to us. They seem not worthy of honoring and recognizing, which makes them harder to embrace the experience of healing, and letting ourselves grieve those losses. So for a lot of seniors right now in high school or 8th graders that were supposed to be confirmed in a few weeks, they are dealing with a lot of loss that doesn't necessarily have a face. And usually our losses have a face when we talk about loss in our culture, which we're not even really good at, let's be honest. And so now their loss looks like prom or graduation. And again, you and I would say those are real losses. We can honor those alongside of you, but they feel like, because of our culture, I think, that those are small things next to people losing their life because of COVID-19. And so we need to give them spaces to honor them and let them know, yes, we can be sad and be honest about death being a big thing, but we can also be sad with you about these things that people might call small, because they're not small to God.
How is that different than FOMO? Because I see that, and I can certainly I do want to honor that, especially all those students who are going to miss out on things that are important in our culture, like you mentioned, graduation or prom or some of those things that they were really looking forward to this year. How is that different from FOMO, the fear of missing out?
Well, FOMO especially includes dreaming up ideas about what other people are doing. So FOMO is an act of comparison more than an act of experiencing loss. And so we are in the act of FOMO, creating anxiety for ourselves based on what might be occurring somewhere else. So pretend, if you want to connect it to like teenagers, because I wrote this article for youth ministry, so that's a good place to go with it. But I do want to clarify that I think that plenty of adults experience this too. I don't think it's relegated to the realm of teenagers. But if you are a teenager and you are, your parents said, we have to quarantine, we're not going to be able to see our friends for a while, you can FaceTime them or whatever. But then you go on social media and you see a picture of somebody getting together, your mind immediately goes to 18 different ways and reasons these people got together without you, and what you are not doing and not allowed to do. And so those people might be cousins maybe, or they had their family Easter. That also, I've seen this happen quite a bit, might be a picture from last fall. Like people are, there's a lot of throwback Thursdays going on social media, for instance. But your mind immediately takes you to this comparison game. And that is FOMO. That is, I am missing out on something, which then immediately usually turns into shame inside of us and tells us like we're not good enough, we're not cool enough, we don't have the right connections, things like that. And so the fear of missing out is really an anxiety rather than just a sadness over what we have really lost.
Yeah, we have a whole series on the coffee hour that we recorded earlier this spring. Actually, might have been in the winter. We recorded to recognize our volunteers, and when we share that with our listeners, and we have our guests in studio, we'll have to share a disclaimer so everyone knows that this was recorded prior to everything changing due to stay-at-home orders. We're talking about the fear of missing out and the joy of missing out on the way as well. We're talking with Deaconess Heidi here on Mental Health Monday on the Coffee Hour. Stick around. We have more to talk about. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
Hi, I'm Gary Duncan, the Executive Director of KFUO Radio. We are all impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. All of the KFUO staff is practicing social distancing by working from home offices and temporary home studios. Our promise to you is that we will continue to bring you the word of Christ in our programming and worship services, the clear message that we've been proclaiming since 1924. During this worldwide pandemic, we will continue to share the comfort of Scripture. God is our refuge and our strength, always ready to help in times of trouble. So we will not fear when earthquakes come and the mountains crumble into the sea. That's from Psalm 46:1. Thank you for listening and supporting KFUO Radio, and rest assured that when you turn on the radio, click on our live stream, or download your favorite podcast, we will be here proclaiming Christ for you anytime, anywhere. KFUO.org.
This week on Issues Etc., we want your answer to these questions. What's your favorite Easter hymn and why? Vote in advance at facebook.com/issuesetc. Email talkback@issuesetc.org. The Issues Etc. comment line, 618-223-8382, or on Twitter @IssuesETC.
Issues Etc. live weekday afternoons from 3 to 5 on KFUO.
Welcome back to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
It is Mental Health Monday with Deaconess Heidi Goehmann. We were talking about the fear of missing out and the now joy of missing out. So FOMO and JOMO. I sound so hip and cool, don't I?
Totally.
That's not even the right word, is it?
I feel like if you declare it hip, it's no longer hip, baby. Like,
Yeah,
that's
you
not a
ruined
thing,
it.
Andy. Sorry.
Okay, so let's move from fear of missing out to joy of missing out. What is this joy of missing out?
So the JOMO inside of us is, I think, easy for us to understand as Christians because we have Jesus, because we already understand that joy is found in Jesus Christ alone and nothing else. And so it is, while not cognitively maybe easier for us to get to JOMO, the basic idea that we have joy unchanging, even when the world around us is doing their own thing and when we feel not good enough and not cool enough or hip enough, then at the same time, we have a baseline, if you will. Whereas I think it would be harder for someone who doesn't know Jesus to move into JOMO because you're basically just talking about, picking yourself up by your bootstraps and like getting some joy from wherever you can find it. We know where to go for that joy and what will actually transform our heart and minds. And so I think that's the first thing, is you really need Jesus to get to any kind of real joy. That being said, we can also check out of the experience of that joy in Jesus. And as Christians, I think we do this all the time where we have joy, but we're like, I, do things to let the anxiety kind of build up instead, or focus on things that I know are going to cause me anxiety and turmoil internally, instead of opening my Bible, or instead of talking to a friend who can connect me to God's word and what God is saying in my life instead of social media. Or I just don't get off social media when I should. I keep scrolling and I'm like, yeah, Jesus is great, but these feelings are so much better, even though I feel kind of miserable, And so there is a place for engaging in the joy that Jesus gives us rather than the fear, the anxiety, and the act of making bigger what people are doing out there and things, and letting our imagines run away from us. And so there are some steps to get to JOMO, and I think we're going to cover those. But I think I'm curious, what it helps people to start with what brings you joy. Okay, so we have Jesus joy, and you can go to something about Jesus. But in general, what in life helps you engage in that joy, I guess? Andy and Sarah, can you think with me here for a minute? This isn't therapy, but what are some things that bring you joy?
Music, coffee, bikes, my husband, outside. Jesus,
Wow,
obviously.
she was ready for that.
Got my list, man.
That
This
was
is part of my
good.
mental health right now.
She wants to engage in some joy. I like it. How about you, Andy?
Similar. Certainly, music is an important part of that. Even just listening to music. I enjoy making music as well, but listening to music has certainly been something that brings me a lot of joy. Specifically, music about Jesus. Being outside, whether it's going on a family walk and having time to talk with our family, with my wife and my son, or this year we're starting. We've got our plot in the community garden, so planning for that and getting ready for that and taking all the steps. It's been fun playing in the dirt, and just enjoying the good things that God has created, and seeing how that's unfolding as well, especially for my son too, just to see how he is responding to that. Sometimes he's interested, sometimes he's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said
I
that
will add
perfect.
to my list. I will add to my list video chatting with friends and family, because I got to do that this weekend with my brother and sister-in-law and their kiddos, and it was like the best part of my day on Saturday.
Ooh, you guys both had really good things. So Andy said one thing that's really helpful, that is watching what God is unfolding. And so that's part of the joy of missing out. So instead of watching what I'm missing out on, I'm watching to see what God is unfolding. I'm watching to see what he is doing in my life. I'm watching to see what good things are around me, rather than looking for the things that I'm not getting to do or see. And then Sarah, you just said something really good. That's a perfect illustration, is that you were really having joy in video meetings and video discussions. And I do not have any joy in video meetings or video discussions. I cannot deal with them for 5 seconds. And so, I don't find any joy in that. And so JOMO tells me that what you enjoy is different than what I enjoy. And that's a good thing of God. And so I'm going to let you have that. And I'm not going to have any fear in missing out on those things, because that's a Sarah thing. And that is something good that God has given to Sarah. And God has given me different good things. And so those are kind of the two pieces of JOMO, if you will, is both just seeing the good that God gives instead of the, stuff that I'm not getting, and then being excited for the good that God gives other people. And you can see how those two things work together. We need both of them in our lives.
Absolutely. And then, so what is the balance then, seeing the good things and appreciating the good things that God has given other people? But then what is the balance between the JOMO of knowing where your joy is and appreciating your own joys, while also being empathetic towards other people who may not be in that space yet?
That's really good. I can't go around and JOMO other people. That's not my job on this earth, So I think we do this often in the Christian walk, where we kind of tell people the way they need to be living their Christian walk, when I can only focus on mine and just love other people. And so I think you do it by listening most. And so giving them a space to talk about ambiguous losses, giving them a space to even say the things that they fear missing out on, just being that safe person and not judging when people say things that you feel like are not helpful for them. We have to have the relationship, and we have to have multiple conversations in a relationship to get to a place where we can say, I don't think that's really helpful for you. Right now is not the time for that. We're all in quarantine. People are suffering. Just listen instead of judge what people are saying. A lot of times people just need a place to go with the conversation right now. And so you can be that safe person. In being that safe person and in sharing love, people will get to the JOMO on their own, and so focus on ourselves, check in with God, and check in with all the awesome that he gives us. That's a good place to be with JOMO. And I have some more tips, and we can do those in future weeks, of how to get to more JOMO in your life and maybe things to bring up in conversation. But first, just love. And love is so often practiced in listening instead of talking.
sure listening, because not everyone's nearly as excited about like soil composition and what makes up the.
Tell me more, Andy.
I am not afraid of missing out on that. Nope.
Apparently, my wife and son aren't nearly as excited about the soil as well, but they are excited about having a garden, and I think they also find it fun because they see how much I enjoy it as well, just being outside, and so we have certainly enjoyed it. Okay, so more JOMO, then we'll discuss more on the joy of missing out next week on Mental Health Monday. I'm looking forward to digging into that more. We have just about 60 seconds left. The youth piece that you mentioned, that we'll link to. That's in Youth eSource, right? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. We just put out the first article, which it has a talk sheet version or it has an article version. So you can just read it for yourself to clarify these topics that we're talking about, or you can do it with a group and have a discussion guide to go along with. More pieces coming out in the next few weeks that you can do a full Bible study on the fear of missing out to the joy of missing out, and have some real concrete biblical theology for that instead of just, whatever the world calls it, So I think that'll be helpful for teens, but I also think it'll be really helpful for their adult leaders and for all of us in this really weird time that we're all in together. We're in it together. You can find that at youthesource.com, and we'll put a link in the show notes, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yep. We'll put the link in there. And Sarah, you found the article also that Juliana wrote on ambiguous loss too, right?
Yes, I found that link too. So we'll put that one in there as well.
Very good. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thanks so much, Heidi, for being here for Mental Health Monday.
Always. Thanks for having me.
I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@KFUO.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.